Thanks for joining us. Today, I have an incredible panel of people. We've got Paul Ellis, we have Dr. Robert Kerr, we have Odon LaFontaine, we have Mal from Islamic Origins, we have Usama Duck, myself, and of course, JC the Quranic Endgame, and we are waiting for Dr. Jay Smith to join us. He said he will be with us shortly, so this should be a very exciting stream today, especially, I think, with the collaboration between Dr. J and Dr. Kerr. I think it'll be fantastic. So guys, welcome everyone. Usama, you're the one who got Dr. J to join us. Do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction while we wait for
I sure can. Arrive? I sure can. First of all, good to be with all of you. God bless you from the state of Illinois, Chicago, top high ground. I look at Chicago and I feel sorry for these people. They should move to Missouri, which everything is cheaper. But anyway, good to be with all of you. And I met Dr. J. Smith. I can't remember when he joined us. I'll ask him that question. But we were in Toronto. So I was speaking in that conference. He was speaking in the conference. And then I thought of myself so smart. Literally, I thought that I know it all. And I started teaching that which I learned. Here he is. And I'm glad that he can hear me as we talk. So I thought of myself, Dr. Smith, that I'm so smart and I learned it all and I know about Islam all my life. I've been doing this now for almost a good 10 years. Dr. Smith, do you remember when did we meet in Toronto? How many years ago?
Oh, it was about 40 years ago.
No, not 40. I was not 10 years old.
Ancient history. You were just a young man, maybe 17 or 18.
No, I was at least 30 some years. It had to be
so much. No, you're right. It was about 20 years ago.
20 years ago. So anyway, so I am here. I'm going to tell the story to introduce you to our wonderful audience. So I'm sitting there and I got some material. I'm going to teach what I learned. And believe it or not, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, Egyptian, Christian, or all Muslims, obviously, will believe it. So I believe everything I've been taught in Egypt and everything I've been reading about for quite some years. And I finished talking with one of my sessions, and then I listen to you, and that guy is talking about weird stuff. I have no idea where he come up with this. A, he's a liar. B, he's deceiving us. C, I know nothing about what I'm talking about. So I don't want to look at myself like I don't know. So I must know. I mean, I read from the sources, Islamic sources. So as then I listen to you and you start telling about Mecca and you start talking about Muhammad and you're talking about the Quran and brand new information, it shocked me. I'm not kidding you. I was shocked. But at the same time, I have to say that you said, this book is coming up. This book is coming up. This material is coming up. So I said, well, a good excuse. He does not have the evidence written somewhere. Therefore, maybe he's wrong and I'm right. Because what I learned must be the truth. Obviously, as years went by and I listened to you again and again and again, and believe it or not, I travel a lot. Right now, actually, in Chicago. And even when I travel, I just listen to yours, the same presentation over. And I'm like a sponge, a dry sponge. I want to soak all the information you have. And I cannot wait to see it in the Arabic language. And even I will use it as well. So Dr. J. Smith, it is our honor to have you with us the next 20 hours or 2 hours. I don't know how much time you're going to give us. And it is, thank you so much for accepting our request, and we'll give you the floor. And you, once again, teach us, and we are here, ears listening to whatever the Lord put on your heart. Good to be with you.
Oh, I'm supposed to talk. I thought I was. Listen, you've got Dr. Robert Kerr there. What do you want to listen to me for?
We invited you. Well, we can invite him next time.
Have learned. And you've got Mel. Goodness sakes, this guy comes up with new things every week. You should see some of the stuff he's found out about Aisha just this week. And Odon, look at you've got some of the best men in the world here.
Well, we love them all, but we love you right now because you are our guest speaker. We'll have them all to have your big spot in your left corner up there. Yeah. But it's good to have you with you.
Thank you. So good to see you. What, 2 years?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yes.
We missed you in London. We would love to have had you back there in London last month. But
well, if you'd send me, send an invitation and I'll try to come. Yeah.
Invitation's always open. For the next year, you're going to be there.
Okay, good. I don't like to impose myself.
Largest church in London. We now.
I am imposing myself, Dr. Smith. I will be there, Lord's willing.
Osama, you should have been there last month as well.
I know.
Odon was there. I think, Odin, you were the only one that was there. Wasn't that great last time?
Yeah, it was great. It was all the more great that I had the chance to share the house with you and the other guys.
That was fun,
You
wasn't
know,
it? Yeah.
we-
We had
it was nice.
just in the perfect place in London to go anywhere at any place. Yeah. So this is I don't know why you want to listen to me so much. You should be really listening to Robert on this, and
Mhm.
Mel and Odin, and Paul Ellis. Good to see you there too.
Hi, Jay.
Paul and I mean, all of us have been doing this for years and years, and you're looking at the cream of the crop right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the 5 of us are really the top 5 in the world right now, who are unpacking this and who are going public with it. Not that we're the best at unpacking it, but we're the best at communicating it in a public forum. I think that's why, in some respects, the rest of the world is waking up to it, because
Amen.
YouTube is an enormous, what's the word? It's the best vehicle to get this out there, to field test our newest theories. And that's what we're doing. And that's why we have been getting hit. We've been getting hit from all sides because people think that we're saying things that we cannot support yet. I mean, you're asking us to write it down. Why do you think I haven't written a book down, Usama? The reason is the material keeps changing. We keep on adding to it. There's almost every week, I mean, especially with Mel and Odin, these guys just can't shut down. They just keep on. I mean, he's supposed to be. I mean, Mel's supposed to be on a pilgrimage. And even on a pilgrimage, he's putting together all this new material that he keeps coming across because he keeps his antenna up, and then he even has time to put a great little video together on North by Northwest. That was a great little video, Mel. But you had the wrong ending. The ending should have been you at the finding the key you've been looking for, and having a beer and sitting down at a table and winking at the audience. That'll be your next.
To explain for the audience, I was filming myself with a drone that was like swooping down like the movie North by Northwest.
Trying to attack him from all sides, and finally he gets to his goal. Now, I mean, I don't want to say too much, Usama. What I'm going to do is pick the minds of these guys that you have here and have them say. So I'm going to throw things out and see what they say about this. Because what we're doing is we're looking at 3 things. We're looking at one book, one man, and one place. The book, the man, and the place. That's it. We're just looking at those, and we're not saying that we know the answer yet. We're not saying that, and we dare not say that, and we probably won't know the answer to those 3 questions until possibly another 10 years, maybe 12 years, maybe 20 years from now. So I'm not gonna do what Odon is already doing and what Mel would like to do, and others would like to do. I know my colleague Daniel Janasic has written a book thinking he knows what happened. I don't know what happened. My interest is, are the Islamic traditions correct? That's really my whole interest. What the Islamic traditions say about that book, that man, and that place? The book, the Quran, the man Muhammad, and the place Mecca. And the Islamic traditions are wholesale in their reference on those 3 areas. And everybody has believed the Islamic traditions without ever questioning it. And that's the problem. If you say a man was born in 570, lived in this place called Mecca for 52 years, and then in 622 moved to a place called Medina, and between starting in 610 up till 632 when he finally died, he received a book called the Quran, half of it in Mecca and half of it in Medina. All of this, all 114 chapters, and that this was a finished text by 632 when he died. If you're going to say that, and that's what everybody knows, that's what everybody hears, that's what everybody has been told, then you're going to have to support that. And so far, Muslims haven't supported that historically. And so all I'm interested in is holding their feet to the fire and saying, okay, you're the ones that say he was born in this city. You're the ones that say this city has existed since the time of Adam and Eve. Your Quran says that this city existed at the time of Abraham in 19th century BC. You're the ones that say that this man grew up there, spent his 52 of his years there, and that from there he received all these revelations from a guy named an angel named Gabriel. You're the ones that make these claims. Those are historical claims. Because they're historical claims, we have the right to question them historically. And that's all we're going to ask. We're going to ask certain questions, historical questions, about whether that man and that book existed in that place at that time. It's as simple as that. And that's what we've been doing. Now, as we come up with more information, as we come up with more evidence, as more people start, actually, I think what's happening is because we're putting it up on the internet and it goes out so far, so quickly. Some of my talks have been, about 4 of my talks have gone to over 3 million views. That shows that when you use YouTube, you can get to a much bigger audience than when you write a book or write an article. More than that, you get to people who would never have watched this material or asked these questions than you would writing a book, because who's going to buy the book or who's going to read the article unless they go to that journal, which tends to be very specific. So that's why YouTube has been a great vehicle. That's why we're doing this today. We're using YouTube because it gets the material out, it gets the questions out. The difficulty is most of what we're putting out there are questions. We're not saying that we know what happened. And I think that's where the anger has come back.
Yeah.
What happened a year ago when we got a huge backlash in August of last year against quite a few Christians. Brothers, these are good friends of mine who were calling me a liar and a deceiver. And they really went after Mel. But they went after both of us. And I lost about a third of my support because of that a year ago. And the reason for that is because most people, when they see us saying this, they think that we actually know that this is what happened. We don't know what happened. I don't know how many times Mel and I have said this. Have we not, Mel? These are green papers. These are green papers. We're putting them out there. React. Come back to us. We need to be peer reviewed. And that's what peer review does. I mean, Robert, you know this. You write an article, you put it out there, people read it, and usually the people that read it are people that are knowledgeable, because otherwise they wouldn't be reading the journals that you put those articles in. And those people may take 6 months, maybe they'll take a year before they respond to you. So you may have to wait 6 months to a year to get a response. When we put it up on YouTube, we get a response within seconds. I kid you not. Almost immediately we get negative responses or positive. And that's why YouTube is great, because you just look at the comments. Look at the comments that are below it. And the comments will say exactly what they believe. Yeah, that's a good theory. No, this doesn't make sense. Have you thought of this? That's how I met Odon. That's how I met Paul. And really, that's how, well, no, I met Mel before that because we were together at Speaker's Corner.
If I can throw something out there, Dr. J, one, we're very grateful you're here. 2, when the controversy happened with yourself on this channel and amongst the panel that we have here, everyone supported you. We're all very grateful for your work. We're all very supportive of what you do.
Could somebody explain to me what happened? I'm a bit
in a moment, just in one moment, and then just finally, my final point is, 10 years ago, Dr. J, you and Hartoon, who was on the channel recently, she did a fantastic presentation. You changed the scene. You changed the polemics forever, I think, when you and Hartoon went to Speaker's Corner, introduced those 26 different Qurans. It blew my mind. I think all of us here were completely just shocked at what you presented. And this upended the landscape, turned everything upside down, and it changed apologetics, it changed the polemics. And I think because of that, everyone else's minds were opened, and we now have the Muslims on the run. You know that they're scared of debating. They are afraid to debate, and they have no answers. And I think a lot of this is due to you and Hartoon, and we owe you both great thanks. You're both legends. So thank you. And back to Dr. Robert Kerr's question. Yeah, can you tell us what happened and also what you're up to, where you're going to right now with your research, and we'd love to obviously support that as well.
Let me just be careful what I do say. What happened last year was nothing to do with any of you or any people who are on this call. It had to do with two people here in the United States. I'm not going to give their names. It's not important that I give their names because I think Mel and I have had enough problem with them. Rather than give them another platform that they can then clickbait off of us, because a lot of this is clickbait. To be fair, I did a talk at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills on July the 7th last year, a little over a year ago, and on that I confronted 10 challenges that Raymond Ibrahim had made back in April against me and against the Origins argument. And he made claims like, I don't even have to look at Jay's videos. I pretty well know that I can shut the idea down about the difficulty with the Origins in just 1/2 hour. And he did that. He made 10 challenges. So I decided to take those 10 challenges, and then I start to unpack and try to rebut each one of those 10 challenges in this talk I gave at Chino Hills. Well, that went viral, and over 3 million people watched that. And because it was so big, four individuals, 2 in America and 2 in Britain, decided to confront me and Mel, because a lot of material that I was introducing was what Mel and I had gone through, what we had put up on Fander Films, and to a lesser extent Odon as well. And also, Robert, saw your material on Mahmoud was one of the material on Mahmoud was probably the most contentious. And it was this material that went all over. It did go very big on their channels, and that was the problem. They were not getting a lot of views on their channels. So they went to another big name who you all know, and I won't give his name right now. They went to a real big Christian name who's a friend of mine. We've traveled together. I've been on the same platform. And they spent, I think they did a 7-hour video against me on that, and Mel. And it was at that point it went all over the world. And as a result of that, that's why I lost all my funding, because of that big clique. And a lot of it was they just didn't understand what we were talking about. They didn't understand that if you look at modern Standard Arabic, you can't apply modern Standard Arabic back to the 7th century Arabic. You've got to be careful. Arabic changes. Every language changes. And what is there in the 7th century is not necessarily what you would read today. It was something as simple as that. And they were also making the claims that if you make these claims as a Christian and you're proving to be a fool, this is every Arab looking at you will see that you're an idiot. That means all of us are going to look as idiots, and that's going to do a disservice to the kingdom of God. That was really their premise. So my response to that was basically nothing. I just decided not to respond to that because in some ways, it would just grow their clickbait, because a lot of this is clickbait. And I think that it gives more people to watch their channels. And so I was warned by an awful lot of people, don't respond, just don't respond, let it go. It will fizzle out. And it has fizzled out, as you can see. It's no longer a problem anymore. And my funding has come back up again. In fact, I have gotten so many emails from so many people who support me saying, do not respond to this. We all understand what you're saying. Please keep doing what you're doing. Don't let this get you off into one thing or another. So in some ways, that's all behind me now, Lloyd. And thanks for also for your support. You've always been very supportive, Lloyd. So I've always known that. It is not you, it's other people who were mainly here in the United States who have been the problem. Since then, things have also kind of conspired, and what we have learned, though, and I think Mel and Odon and I know this very well now. We've learned not to say things that we leave just a standalone. Sometimes what we need to say is, here in July of 2026, this is what we now know. It may change in 1 month, it may change in a year as new evidence comes to light, and we need to say that, so that people don't hang us on things we have said a year ago or 2 years ago, because the evidence keeps moving. And as the evidence keeps moving, we've got to keep up with it. And we've got to make sure that we're saying what we know at that date, and not what we have said a year ago. And that's another problem. Also, another big thing that I have to realize, and this is something that Mel's helped me with and others, I've got to be careful about my exaggeration. I tend to exaggerate because I get so excited. I get so emotional. And I said, can you then see this is shoes? This proves that there was no Muhammad there, no Muhammad of Islam. I shouldn't say things like that. So I've stopped saying things like that. And so I've been very careful that we don't say beyond what we know. And it's been in some ways a good lesson for me. But at the same time, I have not stopped. I don't think I can't speak for Mel or Odon or Paul or Dr. Robert Kerr. I don't think I've changed my view on exactly what I believe about the book, The Man in the Place. And I've been working on this since 1995 when I did my first debate with Dr. Joan Badawi on this very material, using only Dr. Patricia Caron's material. I was in her office the week before that debate, and for 3 hours she went with me, said, say this, don't say this. We know this for sure. Here's a better way to say it. I turned to her and I said, why aren't you doing this debate? And she kind of laughed at me. And she says, listen, Jay, I'm in a department here at Cambridge University. I have a chair to protect. I have an institution to represent. I could never do this debate. There are many other Muslims who are under me, who I'm responsible for. If I did this debate, I would ruin the whole atmosphere of the academia here. I cannot do this debate. You can. You can do this debate because you have no chair to protect and you have no institution to represent. The only person you represent is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Now, here's an atheist telling me who I represented. I represent Jesus Christ. And I almost could have hugged him. I didn't. I was very careful not to. But can you see what she was saying? Those of us who don't have chairs to protect, Robert, you've got a chair. You've got two chairs to protect. You've got an institution you represent. I do. Well, I do have an institution. Yes, I do. But then my institution wants me to do this. And they're very clear that my need to continue, keep pushing the bucket, keep pushing the boundary, and making sure that what we now know is going to destroy Islam. This material that we have found in the last 10 years, I don't think we have, I mean, what I have now and what I started with 45 years ago, it's like night and day. I wish I was your age, Mel and Odon and Lloyd. I wish I was your age again. Can you imagine what you guys have now to work with that we never had when I started back 45 years ago? This work. So today we're giving a baton to the next generation, a much better baton than what we were given. And because there are so many good minds, I mean, look at the people you have right here on this call. You've got some of the best minds in the world right now on this call. 5 of the best that I know of. And because of that, we are the ones who are passing on to our next generation, who are much quicker. They're faster. I just did a 4-hour lesson last night with about 25 people on my master's degree program. And I brought in my adopted son, Alistair Letton. I brought him on just to answer all the questions about all the different debates that are happening on the internet. And I just sat back and listened to him for 3 hours because he knows all the material. He knows who the major players are. He knows what their questions are. He knows what their weaknesses are of the Muslims that are on the internet. We went through about 50 different personalities on the internet, both Muslim and Christian. And he was able to summarize every one of their major points. And I just sat there and I said, man, I wish I could do that. Man, I wish I had a mind like that. Goodness sakes, look how great this next generation is. And he's only 29 years old. So this next generation coming up, we're putting together some amazing minds. I mean, look at God logic. I mean, just look at how quick he is. Look how fast he is. Look what a command he has of the Islamic scriptures and the biblical scriptures. The guy is amazing, and yet he's winsome the whole time. He just sits there and smiles as he completely destroys his opponents with facts. And he just backs them up to the presuppositional base. He just keeps backing them up to their presuppositional base, and then he supports everything he says. This next generation coming up, I'm so excited about. And, we're the old codgers. I don't know how old you are, Robert. Are you my age? I'm 73.
Not quite. Getting there.
Okay, try to catch up if you can, all right? So we're the old guys here. But can you imagine, Robert, this next group that's coming up, especially these 20s and 30s something, they are amazing, and they're clever, they're sharp, they're erudite. I mean, look at Michael Jones. Look at what he's able to do. There's so many major names up there, and we had them all last month. They all came. They were all there with us at London. God Logic was there. Michael Jones was there. We didn't have David Wood because he's not permitted to come into Britain because of his prison background. Anybody that's been in prison can't come. So unfortunately, we didn't have him there. But we had Odon there. I mean, Odon, your mind, what you're able to come out with. And the fact that you have such a good command of English now, that you're able to communicate it in our language, God bless you for all that you're doing. And of course, Mel, I can't say enough about Mel because he just keeps surprising me almost every week with something new. Yeah, it's an amazing. We have a great legacy that we've come from. But what a legacy we're leaving for the next generation.
A quick comment, Dr. Smith. When you talked about you lost some of your people, it just took me back to John 6:66, when Jesus, our Lord and our Savior, lost a big crowd of his disciples. And I believe the only reason they walk away from him because he spoke the truth. And the truth was hard to be swallowed or to be accepted. So I take this as a badge of honor that you lost some people. And guess what? They turn around and come back. And you're gaining more people who will do a great influence, as you just said, for the future to come. But in Islam, as you know, we're not supposed to ask. And the problem is Christians who are challenging you of your new commands and new teachings do not understand the mind of the Muslims that in Islam, you don't ask, period. It's impossible to ask. And if we let these Muslims answer your challenges, there is no answer. But now I see some Christians, I saw some of this video, who are challenging you by giving an answer. And to be honest with you, Muslims do not have any evidence whatsoever about your big three question, the place and the man and the book. There's no answer, period. Anyway, that's my quick comment here.
Dr. Kerr, do you have anything you'd like to ask or add? Because with you and Dr. J, you guys are obviously like at an elite level. So anything you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I would just say that, what I wrote about the etymology of Muhammad, I stick with it, and I haven't seen it being contradicted. So I don't see what the problem is.
I think the problem, Dr. Robert Kerr, is not many people can read your material and understand it. You are so erudite and you're so academic. You almost have to have a degree to understand the way you pose and you put your material out there, because you are writing for the other academics. And the vast majority of people who are going to your articles, they walk away saying, what did he say? Because in some ways we need to dumb it down for you because you're too intellectual.
No, I would say it's a multi-stage rocket with, that you need to do the serious work with the sources, and then somebody else needs to come and distill something understandable from that. You need to present the evidence somewhere, and the article is the best place for that still.
Yeah.
But to popularize it, I concur that, we had a debate with Odon in Paris a few weeks ago, and some of the stuff in his book in Mecca also, he quoted one or two of my articles, I think, and but he made it a bit more understandable for the, for normal people, which is good, but when you present the evidence, you have to present an argument, and based on that, you can popularize. So it's a multi-stage rocket, I believe.
But Robert, if I may, your research on Muhammad Mahmad, the paper you wrote, it's in French, and so alas, most people don't read French, and maybe you should have it translated. Or just give me the original paper and I will translate it into English.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
We have AI for that, and we can have the AI also simplify it and present it here.
No,
I
not
can present
on this specific paper, because on the way you published it on your academia.edu page, you didn't publish it as a PDF file, but as a picture. And so the AI doesn't understand what the French is about.
Okay, because those are the proofs that I got from the publisher. I can send you I have the Word version somewhere, I think. I can send you that.
Mel?
I just want to say that I think one of the lessons we learned from last year is that sometimes we went too far ahead and that we have to bring the crowd along. And unfortunately, most people don't get the nuances of the argument. But on the key argument that we made about Mahmed, which was Robert's etymology argument, it's been vindicated by people like Dr. Ahmed Al-Jalad, who goes even further than we ever had said, and he confirms that there were different pronunciations of Memha Imdal, Mahmed and Muhammad. This was disputed by people saying, it was only ever said one way, but he confirms the word, at least two pronunciations. And then
there's also another argument. Sorry. Go ahead. No.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, there's a.
Go ahead.
There are other arguments that one can make here. For example, if you look at Latin Mahometos, there's no way that can come from Muhammad. And if you look at Turkish Mehmed, that can only come from Mahmad and never from Muhammad. So even the Turkish evidence and the Latin evidence, which spelling reflects the older pronunciations. So, with Mahometus, you can only come from Mahmad, and you need to take the sound changes and later, Latin on its way to becoming Romance.
Yeah, and this is why, in some ways,
the other thing that just to finish a point, the other thing that Dr. Al-Jalad mentioned, which went way further than we had ever said, was that he found a script that hadn't been deciphered in 100 years, and he concluded that over 2,000 years ago, Machmed was being used as a divine title for a pagan god. And so while he didn't say that means that we should assume that it was a title in the 7th century, the possibility is there that a person could have a name and a title, which is essentially what we were saying. But maybe we pushed our argument a bit too strongly, and I think we learned the lesson that we need to pull back and maybe not say things in an exaggerated way.
But you see this, for example, I mean, there's other examples of this where, for example, Rahman, Rahmanin. If you look at Aramaic, but also Sabaic, Old South Arabian, it's a title always used for whichever god you're worshiping. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the merciful, it's an epithet, because what you have in the Jewish tradition, that you don't pronounce the name of the proper name of God, Adonai or Hashem. You have this also in other traditions, because so if you look at Phoenician gods, we don't know their names, we only have their epithets. So Melkart is the king of the city, and Eshmun is the anointed one, is basically means the Messiah, shaman oil. So Rahman, so we often don't have the names of the gods themselves, but only their epithets, how they were addressed. So with Mahmad, it's the same thing. And in my article, I point to a Jewish inscription from what's now Yemen, Sabaic, where it's the God of the Lord of the Jews and his Muhammad, and the Muhammad, which the thing is clearly pre-Islamic. So here, clearly, a Muhammad is an aspect of God. So, which aspect we can debate. I think the important thing to remember in such debates, though, is one cannot prove a negative. So you can't prove that something never was. So you can say that what do we know about Muhammad from contemporary sources? Nearly nothing, except nothing. So I remember you have here, if you just bear with me, it's under a pile of books. But Odon will know this famous work, a 2-volume French book, Le Mohammed des Historiens.
Yeah,
Mohammed of the Historians. And it was edited by a dear colleague, Amir Mouazi. But he basically says that we know that Muhammad wasn't originally called Muhammad. He didn't come from Mecca. And everything that we know about him, we can fit on half a page of paper. They're going, okay, good. So Muhammad of the Islamic tradition doesn't exist. But the only caveat I would say is you can't prove that something never was, because if something never was, there's no evidence. So the only thing that you can say with certainty is that there is no evidence from the 7th century of the prophet of Islam, such as, so as to use Jay's argument, the man, the place, the book. Well, neither of those they fly like ostriches with lead boots. So no, it doesn't. The story doesn't get off the ground. So that's I tend to be more reserved. But what I would say, I would concur. There is nothing to support Muhammad of Islamic tradition, and as I said in the article, the root itself, Hamad, is from Hebrew, and if you want to understand the fairy tale of the revelation of the Quran with Muhammad, just read Daniel chapter 9, and it's basically you've got the outline of the entire story. You've got all the key elements there.
Dr. J,
Because,
sorry. Please finish, Dr. Kerr.
no. So it says, in Daniel 9, but also in Daniel 11, it says, you are Muhammad, or you are Hamad in Hebrew, which basically you are the Muhammad is. It's usually translated as dearly beloved or something in the Hebrew. But so you've got the backbone of this story already in Daniel 9, and this is where we also find the source of the seal of the prophets. So it's too much to be a coincidence.
Yeah, and the fourth thing that's connected with the place is the milieu, and I think this is the big one. Very often people ignore the milieu and don't realize that if you are talking about Mecca in a desert where there's no culture, there's no possibility of having access to books and libraries and so forth, and you have a Quran which has all of these literary references which are consistent with, say, for example, the Fertile Crescent, then that in itself is an argument that the story is different to the one that we've received.
Well, the point is, if you read the Quran closely, you see it is largely a Christological polemic.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with the Quran coming from Mecca, because within the Roman Empire, you had the imperial orthodoxy. But look, for example, the Arians, the Nestorians, they, after they got banished, the Council of Nicaea, they quit the Roman Empire, they crossed the Euphrates, and they had a great career all the way to China. And so outside of the Roman Empire, my apologies, why would you need such a polemic? And as you said, with the books, so the Islamic tradition goes out of the way to say this, but well, then how do you explain the intertextuality? So
I just want to get back to Dr. J, because I know he wanted to add something earlier.
Well, my apologies. I'm paid to speak too much.
No, this is actually very interesting, and I wish we could do just a program on what you're just bringing up, Dr. Kerr. Mel and you need to really unpack the Muhammad argument for everybody and have something. See, what people don't realize is you speak and read and write 10 languages. Do you not?
It's been stated that, yes.
Yeah, okay. I know you're too humble to say it yourself, so we have to say it for you. None of us have that capacity. You are responsible for 2 different institutions, one in German, one in French, in Belgium, and yet people question your ability to go back and read these writings. And this is why we need someone of your caliber. You're the bottom stage. You're the booster. You're the one that actually does the hard work of picking, reading these archaic pieces of literature, unpacking them, translating them, and helping us understand them. Our job, we're the next stage, is to take that and make it so it's palatable so that people can understand it, the lay people can understand it. And my job is to go into large venues and get this out so millions can hear it and see it. So you're right. It's like a 3-booster rocket. And that's why you're so invaluable. And that's why you're the biggest part of the rocket, because you do the heavy lifting that gets the rest of us going where we can do. We're totally dependent on your research, not just you, others as well, but people of your caliber.
We just do our duty. And no, but to go back, because the problem is with the Quran, it's a 3-step argument one can make against Mecca and Medina. You can talk about the contents. So, for example, when you read the Quran, with the Straflegenden, what do you call that in English? The punishment stories and what have you, you don't really get the sense that the book reads as a revelation, or as you read a prophetic book of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, it's different. But then if you look, for example, at Surat Maryam, Surat 19, with the birth story of Jesus, well, it's based on apocryphal gospels. So how does this become a revelation? And then if you take something as Surat Al-Qaf, the Surah of the Caves, Surah 18, which comes from Syriac literature, Sir Jacob of Sarug and what have you. So why would you need to reveal the story of the seven sleepers? Because it's already a popular tale. So then with the Christological polemics, it makes no sense in Mecca, because so even if it were a city, a big city, as per Islamic legend, who would really care? And it makes no sense. But secondly, as I pointed out elsewhere, if the Quran had been revealed in Mecca and or Medina, it would have been in a different Semitic language with a different writing system. It would have been in ancient North Arabic, which is related to
See your point.
which would not have diacritical signs, and it would have been in a different Semitic language and not in what's become classical Arabic. Evidence together,
up a little bit.
the writing system. Pardon?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Hello?
Your signal cutting in and out.
Okay, am I there again?
Yeah, just it's cuts in and out and lose you sometimes.
Okay, yeah. So if you take the contents, the writing system, and the language, it all points to northeastern Syria.
Yeah. Quickly, if you don't mind, I'd like to make a statement here about the history of the stories of the Quran. It seemed to me, I was just writing an article for a newspaper last week, and Pharaoh, for example, Pharaoh in Egypt, he decided to crucify the magician or the sorcerers because he believed in the God of Moses before he gave them the permission. And he made the statement, I will cut your hands and legs from opposite side and I will crucify you. History does not fit with Moses' timing to Pharaoh to make the decision about crucifixion, because we know that crucifixion did not come but centuries later. So it seemed to me the writer of the Quran wrote it. It was written later, of course, and we can give hundreds of examples about that all over the Quran. We don't have time for it now. But how do you see, and the question to you, Dr. J, or anybody else would like to answer, how do you see the history of the story of Moses talking about the crucifixion, which will never be for another few hundreds of years? And how can you even crucify somebody when you cut a hand out of the two hands? Because to make a crucifixion for somebody, you need both hands.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's fascinating because we're going through and we're doing, as we speak, there's a group of us, about 7 of us, who are trying to find all the antecedents. We call it the intertextual. I think that was already brought up. Intertextual, looking at all the antecedents in the Quran, where they come from, who wrote them, when they were written, what languages they were written, and how they got changed from the original text to the text that we see in the Quran today. That's coming out next year. We're going to publish that so that all of these are going to be exposed to the whole world, including the story you're talking about with Moses and the crucifixions. And don't leave it with Moses. Also, the story Joseph has the same thing. How can you have crucifixions at the time of Joseph, which is even earlier? I'm sorry, comes later, because you have this difficulty of crucifixions that don't even begin to appear until the Phoenicians invent it in about, I think it's the 4th or 5th century. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So these are real problems. These are historical anachronisms, we call them. At the same time, we know now why they're there, because they're in this Talmudic material from Jewish accounts. They're from Christian sectarian writings. They're from Ethiopic writings. We are picking a lot of them from Zoroastrian writings, even some from Chinese writings. And we're putting them all together so we can pretty well look at most of the Quran, not all of it, but most of the Quran, and be able to see where the antecedents come from, proving that this is man-made as well as possible. And that explains why it's all ulta-pulta, as we say in India. It doesn't flow. There is no sequence. Stories begin, they don't end. There's only one complete story in the entire Quran, and that's chapter 12, the story of Joseph. All the other ones don't have beginnings or ends. They don't flow one from another. They jump all over the place. That's what you do when you borrow very quickly from many different sources. You borrow what you have, and you borrow the ones that are already in Arabic, as Dr. Kerr is saying, a very crude Arabic, Nabatean Sabaic Arabic. And what you have is not the original text. And the reason you don't go back to the original text is because both the Old and New Testament had not yet been translated into Arabic. So they didn't have access to the authentic stories of Moses and Joseph and David and all the other prophets. And that's why so many of them are erroneous. But we need to show the world exactly that this is as man-made a book, and it fits the right place, the right time with the right people.
Before we get to Mal, Dr. J, one question I'm curious about. What was most surprising for you about the research, especially maybe the last few years, that you least expected? Or what really surprised you about where the answers took you? Where the research ended up and the things you weren't expecting to find?
Well, again, I'm not interested in putting together how the Quran came to be. I'm more interested in showing what the Muslims claim. Remember, I'm always confronting what the Muslims say. And what the Muslims say is what the Quran says. And the Quran and the Muslims are very clear that Adam and Eve were the first people that landed on earth, came found from heaven. Therefore, that's in chapter 7, verse 24, Eve down to Mecca. So therefore, I'm more interested that the Quran makes this claim that Mecca existed from the very beginning. In chapter 21 of the Quran, that Abraham was there rebuilding the Masjid al-Haram, whatever that means. But Muslims claim that's the Kaaba. So in 1900 BC, there should be a place called Mecca. I'm more interested in also looking at what the Quran says about Moses that Usama's bringing up, or what it says about Abraham, or what it says about Cain and Abel and the raven, or what the great story in chapter 27 of what it says about Solomon and Sheba and this hoopoe bird. All of these are great stories, but they don't make sense in the historical context that we're finding today. So these are historical claims of people who do certain things, say certain things in a certain place at a certain time. Those are the four things I'm interested in. I'm going to confront every one of those four by showing that we now know where this story came from. It's not from the authentic documents. It never could have happened at this time. You cannot have crucifixions way back in 1900 BC. You cannot have crucifixions in 1400 BC. Therefore, obviously, these are erroneous. That's my interest. So I'm not going to sit there and say, how then did the Quran come together? I'm just going to say where we can pretty much poke holes in it and show it's not the book with the right person at the right place or at the right time. Mel's trying to say something, I think, but he's muted.
Am I?
Mel can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
No. Yeah.
No.
So Mel, you and then we'll let Paul make his point as well.
I think the point about the fact that no story is ever, bar one, has been told in the Quran, it's all illusions. That tells us about the audience. The audience already knows these stories, particularly the Christian stories. That tells you everything about where the Quran is being written. It's not down in a place that is in a pagan society. It's a sophisticated society that's familiar with rabbinic connections, Christian connections, and so forth. So I think that's the key point.
Great point. Yeah. Robert wants to say something.
I just would point out just two caveats with what you're saying, and not that I disagree, but I think it should be a bit fine-tuned, is that one has to remember also that what we consider the Bible today wasn't necessarily the Bible at all times and all places. So what we consider apocryphal wasn't apocryphal for everybody at all times and all places. And also, when you read the texts, we now make these clear-cut distinctions between Jews and Karaites and different flavors of Christianity and different flavors of Islam. But when you read the text from the period, you see that people are reading each other's stories. For example, if you read Sacha Gaon's Arabic translation of the Bible from the 9th century, you see that with how he translates the Joseph story in Genesis, he knows of the story, the Surat Yusuf in the Quran. So, and you see in Syriac church fathers influence of Jewish exegesis. So what I mean is our clear-cut distinctions are not so clear-cut. And you see this, for example, with the vocalization of the Bible, the fatha in Arabic, which is a line on top of the letter. Well, in Hebrew, that's a patach, that's a line under the letter. And it's called basically the same thing in Syriac. It's just written differently, but it's the same word. And it also represents a closed A. So these people, they're working together. So these clear-cut distinctions that we'd like to make today, one has to remember there is another problem here. You just mentioned it with Pharaoh and crucifixion. One might just briefly point out that even the word Firaun, you have to explain where the nun at the end comes from, like Pharaoh in Hebrew. You can explain from an older pronunciation of Per'a in the big house in ancient Egyptian. And what's interesting is that in Coptic, you've got a spelling Pharaoh, which is a borrowing from Greek. But in Bohairic Coptic, Pharaoh becomes Uru or Uro. In Sahidic Coptic, it becomes something like Ru. So so it's clear that whoever's behind the Quran only knows of the word probably through a Syriac source and not through a so it's not genuine Arabic. So it probably comes from Syriac or some form of Aramaic. So they have.
Are your internet breaking up again, Dr. Kerr?
Yeah, but it is a quick comment. Here is a quick comment. All the stories of the Quran we cannot understand, and the best of the Quran, as you said, Dr. J. Smith, it is the story of Joseph, and we have done this. Me and brother Lloyd here, and we ask over 100 questions. I mean, they're simple questions, and you could not find the answer for these questions in the verses of the Quran. You have to go back to the Genesis account to understand who is that, or whatever Allah is saying in the Quran about these 100 plus verses. Plus, obviously, is the solid error. Joseph Mama came to Egypt. You could not come up with this by reading the Bible. I don't know where the writer of the Quran come up with this. But I want to ask another question, Dr. Smith.
But let me just back on that. We can answer them. That's the great thing. I mean, the story of Cain and Abel and the raven, that comes straight out of the Targum of Jonathan ben Uzziah, written in the 2nd century AD. The story of Abraham going into the Masjid al-Haram and destroying all the idols and then being thrown into a fiery pit. That's not in our Bible, but that comes from the Mishnah of Rabbah, again, written in the 2nd century. The story of Solomon and Sheba and the hoopoe bird, and it talking to birds, and so is the Sheba able to talk to birds. That comes from the 2nd Targum of Esther. So we do know the sources, we know the dates, we know when they were written. They were all written after the Bible had already been canonized. Yeah, so that's why
you're making my point. You're making my point.
That's why it's such a good material to use with Muslims when you show. This is just borrowing, and we know who you borrow from.
Exactly. So we don't have answer from the Quran, but you have answer from somewhere else. If it's not the Talmud or Mishnah or Midrash, it's some other books, but not the Quran. Does not give an answer. But here's my question to you. I don't know if you have heard that question before or not, but something I've been challenged with. When I go to Al-Jalalain interpretation, he's the only guy who come up with. He will tell you at verse 1 of every one of these chapters of the Quran or surahs of the Quran that this is a Mecca or this is a Medini. I can understand that the Quran was written in the first portion of it in Mecca, the first 13 years of the life of Muhammad, claiming to be a prophet, and then he moved to Yathrib, which is changed to Medina, and he wrote the rest of the Quran, which is Medini chapters. But here's the problem with Al-Jalalain. He would tell you this is a Mecca chapter, except, and he give you a few verses are Medini. That's fine, because Muhammad added to it later. If this is the narrative of the Muslims. But what about the Medini chapters, which have Meccan verses? How in the world Muhammad was able to go back to Mecca when we know that 8 and 9, according to the scholars of Islam, are the last two chapters written in the Quran? How in the world Muhammad add Meccan verses to Medini chapters? Have you ever heard that question, and what is your answer?
Well, that's a perennial question that comes up it's been around for years, and I'm sure Dr. Kerr can answer better than I. What I usually say for that is, first and foremost, you're assuming that Muhammad received this.
Yeah.
That's your first assumption. I'm going to dispense with that. I don't think Muhammad, whoever he is, had anything to do with this. You assume that it was,
if he ever was.
If he ever existed. Thank you for saying that, Dr. Kerr. You're assuming also that he was responsible for even putting the Quran together in its present form, when we know that he died before it was even written down. I mean, that's what the traditions tell us. Zayd ibn Thabit was the one that actually went and compiled it after, within a year to 2 years after he died, and then recompiled it again in another form 20 years later, and we don't even have any of those copies. And we know that it was accreted and deleted and changed, manipulated 7 different times. There's been 7 different canonizations of the Quran. So why are you claiming that Muhammad had anything to do with this? That's the first problem. Secondly, as to where and what, whether or not it's Mecca and Medina, and who do you think made that distinction? Whoever put the Quran together, remember, by the time of John of Damascus in 730, he's referring to 4 different books at that time: the book of the cow, the book of the women, the book of the table, and the book of the camel. 4 books. There should have been 114 of them. So why only 4 as late as 730? So if it wasn't even complete by that time, then you're going to say that this had to do with an awful lot later. So Jalalain, when did he write? Well, you have been told he's a 9th or 10th century. Show me his documents. Show me his manuscripts. We don't have anything before the 11th century. So you're going to much of this decision happened after the 11th century. That's 400 years after the fact.
Well,
so don't give credit to Muhammad for this. Better give credit to the people who actually then compiled the Quran. And they were the ones that decided what was Mecca and Medina. And they made mistakes here and there, like men do and women do. And so that's why you have a little bit of a Mecca within Medina and some Medina within Mecca.
Well, there is another problem. But so first of all, with John of Damascus, Mel is going to know what I'm going to say, I believe. Is that if you look at the critical Greek editions and not the old translations, you see that his book on heresies is usually regarded as not by John of Damascus, and the last heresy, the heresy of the Ismailites, is even later. It's an addition to an addition. So we're probably in the early 10th century with John of Damascus. So there is the idea that it relates to the period of John of Damascus, I'm not convinced of. It's at least a century and a half later. And Mel had a funny way of proving me right. He didn't believe me, but he asked AI, and I can't remember what AI told you there, Mel.
I got it to analyze the text and compare it with the rest of his writing, and said it was totally different style, different type of wording.
That's what I told you. That's what I told you after having spent years and years reading John of Damascus in Greek, not just his book on heresies.
Yeah.
May I attend when you are done?
Paul wanted to ask a question. Paul, can you maybe make your comment?
Yeah. Hi. First of all, it's great to speak to you again, Jay. It's been quite a long time. I kind of I'd like to slightly disagree politely with Robert's observation from about sort of half an hour or so ago, where he said he can't prove a negative, because it seems to me, Jay, that you disproved, you proved that there was no Mecca, or at least anything remotely like Mecca in existence. And you did that well over 10 years ago, because when I first started getting interested in this topic, which was about 10 years ago, one of the first and most persuasive sources I looked at were some of your videos disproving the traditional narrative of Mecca. That it's just simply not possible that there could have been a city there that nobody visited, nobody wrote about, and had no agriculture, had no water, was on a trade route, but nobody actually seemed to trade anything. the people went to the caravans for rest, but there was no fruit or vegetation or anything there to give them sustenance. They had this pilgrimage site, but nobody really seemed to know anything about it. You proved. Oh yeah, and of course the great trading city and pilgrimage city where nobody ever dropped a coin, or nobody, there's no bones, there's no bits of pottery, there's absolutely zero physical evidence. So I think, for my mind, Jay, you proved that there was no Mecca, and you did this a long time ago.
Can I just interrupt, Paul, just quickly?
Okay.
I think we're talking. What I said was merely that I concur. The evidence for Mecca, I've also written on this, but is zilch, and the evidence for Muhammad, for the Islamic tradition, is zilch. My only point was, you can't, if something never was, you can't prove scientifically that something never was. You can, as I said, you can prove that this. How do you prove that there was or was not a prophet? That was my only point. So I agree with Mecca and the Islamic tradition being ahistorical completely. That wasn't the point I was trying to make. I was just trying to say with Muhammad, you can't, who knows, there might have been somebody, but there's no evidence to support it, but that doesn't, so all that we have is the absence of evidence, which makes the Islamic narrative impossible. That was my only point.
Okay.
It makes it really helpful when the Muslims help you out on this as well. So back in the 28th of July last year, a year ago, when asked why is it that the entire Western academia has discredited the Islamic or the Hadith traditions or the Hadith sciences because of their dependency on Isnad. When he was asked, Dr. Shabir Ali was asked on his show by his daughter, he says, listen, we don't have to worry about Western historical criticism. We don't have to worry about the Western edifice. We pretty well know that we can trust what Muhammad said and did, even though it goes through 5 generations of Isnad, because those who were there, the Sahaba and the Tabi'un, the second generation, they were absolutely pure. They never lied. And because they were absolutely pure and never lied, we could trust them. So when she asked, well, how many are you talking about? How many Sahaba were there with Muhammad? He said 120,000. Now stop and think that through. I just started clapping. I say, Dr. Shabir Ali, you've just done us a great favor. 120,000 Sahaba surrounding Muhammad, listening to what he said, watching what he did. They never wrote anything down. They all had wives. That puts it double that number. What about the people that weren't the Sahaba? What about all the tradesmen? What about all the people who were the soldiers and the sweepers and all the keepers and everybody else? You're saying that in Mecca there were 500,000 people. That's about the size of Las Vegas, and no one's heard about this place. It's the size of Las Vegas. You have just basically walked into a trap. Thank you. All I have to do is quote you now and say we're talking about a city of about 500,000, and no one's ever heard of it at that time that Muhammad died in 632. So in some ways, just let the Muslims walk into this trap, and you just need to quote them from here on out. So with Mecca out of the way, here comes the next problem. Who cares what Muhammad you find? If he's not from that city that didn't exist, what Muhammad are you talking about? And who cares what Quran you find? I don't care what manuscripts you find. If they are not from that city that did not exist, we're not talking about the same Quran. And my job's done. Once you take out Mecca, you take out the other two.
The three, they stand and fall together. I concur.
Yeah.
I think my question that I was trying to build up to was, when you say, Jay, oh, my job is done. But clearly your job isn't done, because you've still got plenty of life in you, and there's still a lot of people out there who we haven't reached and who don't there's a lot more work to be done. Now, what I would question is my question to you is what could we do collectively, taking this forward, to be more efficient how can I put this? The unpleasant incident that you spoke about from last year. We don't want that to happen again, and we don't want people amongst our own community to be falling out over this. I wonder how do we avoid it? It seems to me that we've got to find a way, some sort of way forward of peer reviewing one another in a way that is polite, courteous, not like the peer review that went on last year. But we've got to find a way of doing this in a way that is constructive and brotherly.
This is let me just say, and I'll be very frank about this, and I don't mind if this is going out all over the airs. One of the big problems I'm having is I'm a Protestant, evangelical Protestant. And I'm getting in the neck from a lot of other evangelical Protestants for working with people like you, Paul, and you, Mel. You're both Catholics, and you, Odon. How in the world can an evangelical Protestant man be working with the Catholics? I get that in the neck all the time. Don't I, Usama? You know that. And you've had to defend me on this. Sure. And I'm getting fed up with evangelical Protestants for not realizing, cannot see the forest for the trees. I'm not asking Odon or Mel or Paul to be evangelical Protestants. I'm asking them to do the research and feed us the material, because what Robert's doing, what Odon's doing, what Mel's doing, what you're doing, Paul, I can't do. I don't have your gifts. I don't have your language acquisitions. I don't know where where he gets the energy to keep coming up with such new material. I mean, almost 3 days don't go by when he's sending me something new. And
don't you see the common trait, Jay?
We need to keep talking together, and we need to make sure that we continue to communicate together. Because those of us who actually communicated on the internet in a big way, we need you guys to keep doing your research. We're going to do that. We're going to be the ones that do it publicly, and we're the ones that get it in the neck. You're not going to get it in the neck. We're going to get it in the neck. I don't mind that. I'm used to fighting. I've been doing it for 45 years. I'm used to being lambasted. But for those who are listening out there, if you're evangelical Protestants, please help us in the evangelical world to stop this criticism and stop this idea that somehow we're being too ecumenical. And if we're being ecumenical, we need to stop it because this is not pleasing to Jesus Christ.
And
it absolutely is pleasing to Jesus Christ that we work with the Catholics. I work with the Copts. I work with, listen, I just did a series with the Russian Orthodox. I work with the Jews. I'm going to be working with Hindus next. So I have to work with those who run with me, because Islam is growing too fast. It's becoming too powerful. We need to shut it down, and I need all the help I can get, including my Catholic brothers and also Kerr. I don't know where you stand on this, Robert, but God bless you for what you're doing, and I'm not going to stop working with you guys and gals just because of the fact that you don't go to church with me.
Yeah, and by the way, Dr. Smith, Muslims know that. They know how to bring division among us, because that's the only way they can, in their head, to conquer us. Oh, it's amazing. I'll be speaking in church, and I speak in all over churches. I'm a Baptist guy, but I don't. The Straightway Bliss ministry have nothing to do with the Baptist. So I made my ministry. My wife, she wanted me ordained so badly by my own church in Florida. I said no. Thanks them for commissioning me, but I am not going to be ordained by a specific denomination name, because this ministry, it is to the Muslim and to the rest of the world. So Muslims will come to a church I'm speaking in, and I don't have to say what denomination is, and they don't ask me a question about what I talked about, or they don't ask me a question about something to do with Islam. No, they talk about what do you speak in tongue? Do you believe in this? They are so smart, Dr. Smith. They're there to ask a question to bring a division between me and the church which invited me to speak about Islam, and I never give them an inch. I never give an inch. So we have to be smart. We have to be wise. We have to be above them. Otherwise, they will bring the division. We have one Lord and one Savior. His name is Jesus Christ. We Christians, I don't care what denomination you go to, what church background you go to, we believe in the Bible is the perfect word of God. We believe Jesus Christ is the word of God who became flesh. He died on the cross. He rose again. He is. We believe in Trinity. And as I always say, if you don't believe in Trinity, you can call yourself Baptist or Catholic, but you're not. And so on. We have to have unity, and will not allow the Muslims to get between us to make that division. Very important.
Odon wanted to make a point. If I can just let Odon mention his point, Mel.
Yeah, but it's a bit out of context now. But I have something else to say. What you just said, Jay, about divisions among Christians. Actually, we are living closer and closer to the end times. It's obvious. And because of this, the Antichrist gets, or the Antichristic systems get more potent. And it becomes obvious that we have to choose either the Antichrist or Christ. And because of this, there is a sort of judgment call to be made. Do you want to join the Antichrist or do you refuse him? And this way, non-Christians and Christians from different denominations, because they refuse the Antichrist, they will join. And this is what you are experiencing with Jews, Hindus, atheists, and Christians from all these denominations. We have to make the judgment call.
No.
The
point of
let's not get distracted into eschatology and denominational divisions. I think it's somewhat off topic, perhaps, or rather just stick to the mechanics.
Butt in and bring things back to Islam, if I may. Dr. J, it's very nice to meet you at last and to speak with you for the first time. It's great to actually have you on the panel. Thank you for joining. Paul read my mind a moment ago when he said about proof and from the comment that proving something that didn't exist scientifically, it's impossible. But that's actually the main problem with Islam, is proof is meant to be the inference to the best explanation based on the evidence available. And every day we're getting more and more evidence that the narrative is false. We're not getting evidence, this is for people watching, we are not people here just going through all of these ancient sources and finding Muhammad of the narrative everywhere and then pretending that's not there. We're going through the sources, and the more we go into them, the more we realize that the story is false. I mean, one might even say that the standard narrative has holes in it, and we are trying to find those holes. So if we define proof as let's put the evidence on the table and then this will be what it happened, and I think we're pretty much there. We have the information, but I'll give this example. If you show to a Muslim the 37 or 39 different Qurans from Hatuntash, you show that to a Muslim, and then you show them hadith saying that whole surahs were lost and verses were lost, and then you show them the different qira'at and the works of Shadi Nasser, and you show them the works of Daniel Brubaker with edits, you show them all of that. The Muslim will still look at you and say, one book perfectly preserved to the letter. For us, this is proof. To them, they will look at all of the evidence and still claim the opposite. So the problem with proof is that when it comes to Islam, it looks like someone's feelings or opinions is proof, and it is not. So the more we are digging into these stories, like Usama said before, we see that the sources are later written. We have also discussed here on the channel things like the journey of of Abraham going with Hagar to Mecca, that not only that didn't happen, and no scholar would argue that it did, that the story evolved. They added the Burak when they realized that the journey was too big. So we can actually prove all of the lies or lots of the lies that have been created in order to build a narrative. Some things are very simple, such as the book is completely in Arabic. If we show words that are not in Arabic, that they were actually from Syriac, Ge'ez, Hebrew, and so on, it's like, so your book is not in Arabic, people are lying to you. When we see verses that have been exegeted wrong, such as Surah 17, verse 1, nothing to do with Muhammad, it's all about Moses, but as if by miracle, we get a full story about Muhammad that matches that verse, which is about Moses. So if we put enough things on the table and say, okay, this is now proof, we have all of this evidence, and of course you can say, no, but the hadiths say otherwise, the hadith is not proof. So I think we are just bringing more and more evidence. We just need to find the way of putting enough of that evidence together to show the world and say, here you go, this is no longer evidence, it's proof, because the standard narrative just falls out of it. That would be my take. What do you think, gentlemen?
Shadi Nasser did a very interesting talk recently on another channel, and he acknowledged the fact that, yes, there are inscriptions about Muhammad and various things that go way back into the past. So that clearly they weren't innovated with Islam, but they come from the past, they're borrowings, and we can prove that just about every single story in Islam is a borrowing from Zoroastrianism, Judaism, apocryphal Christian writings, etc., etc. But I could tell Dr. Shadi Nasser was very concerned that what we have been putting forward as a group generally for the last decade, starting with yourself, this is gaining legs. This has got legs. This actually, it's starting to validate, his research is starting to validate many things we say, which undermines Islam, but he can't come out and say, well, what do you think of that situation where academics clearly know, it's even Islamic academics, but they are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and maybe a little bit of jihad.
I'm going to answer both JC and Lloyd simultaneously. JC, good to meet you. I've never met you before. I've seen your work. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Let me answer JC. He said, and then I'll come to you, Lloyd. JC asked, what good does this do if they hear the evidence, but they still keep repeating the same old. It doesn't really change their minds. One of the things that we know, when I started at Speaker's Corner every Sunday in 1992, and I was there for 25 years, every Sunday that I was free, I was down there, and we always made a dictum. We always said, when we go to Speaker's Corner, you're going to get a lot of crowd around you. You're going to get many people who are going to be yelling and screaming. They're right next to the ladder. They're the ones who are going to try to get you off track. They're the ones who are the professionals, and they're paid to do this, to try to shut you down. Your job is not to take them on. Your job is not to worry about those Muslims in the front who are there to confuse you and to try to overpower you. Your job is to convince the crowd behind, the audience behind. And that's why I say to JC, yes, a lot of people who you're confronting, and a lot of people who you're engaging, even the ones you're debating, you're not going to convince them. They're certainly not going to show that they're convinced, not in public, because it'd be too dangerous for them. It's the audience that you're trying to convince. And that's why I always say, whenever, like last month, when I had 20 different people get up on the ladder with me just to try out, see if they could do it. I said, remember, your job is to look at the camera. I'll take care of the people that can confront you. Let me do that. I've got a loud voice. You just concentrate on the camera, because it's the people who are going to see this, the tens of thousands who are going to see this around the world. They are the ones you have to convince. All right. And that's why I don't worry about a lot of the people, even when I'm engaging with them on a street-to-street basis, they will not be convinced. They just keep repeating it. But the audience can see. It's the audience can see. Wait a minute. Mr. Smith said something that completely shut down his argument. He's still not listening. And you can even say that to the audience. Have you noticed? I shut him down. I've shut his idea down. And yet he's still not responding. You can even make that point when you're doing this, especially in a live situation. We do it all the time. Now, to get to Lloyd's point, the thing of what was your point, Lloyd? Just remind me again.
Even Islamic academics realize that we've pushed them to the point where they have to acknowledge our arguments, but they can't come out and say it, and it's obvious that they are stuck.
No, this is good. This is good. Thanks, Lloyd, and thanks for bringing this up. I don't worry about the academics. Listen, I understood Patricia Caron's dilemma. She could not say this publicly because of the environment she was living in and she was teaching in. There's some things that Robert Kerr cannot say in public that we can, but he can write it in his articles, and he does. And that's why we take what Robert Kerr and we use him, because he is our bastion. He is our authority, because he has the pedigree. We don't have the pedigree that Robert has. And that's why we need to make sure that we keep reading Robert's new material, and we keep on. We're the loudspeakers that blast it out into the stratosphere so the whole world can hear it. Now, I'm not asking the academics to come to our conclusions.
Good science is always teamwork, by the way.
It is teamwork, but until you met us, Robert, we were kind of just struggling because we didn't have what you know, and we weren't able to go with what you know.
But we're now, what I'm saying is we're now a team, so that this is all good. It happens.
Yeah, but I'm not going to ask you to say what we're saying, nor am I going to ask you to come to conclusions like we come to conclusions. Mel and I, we come to conclusions way beyond quickly, and we say, isn't this mean? This means we can say this now about Muhammad, or we can say this now about Mecca. And that's where, as Mel's saying, we need to pull back because we are going much too quick with that. So I'm not worried about the academics right now, Lloyd. Let the academics they have to be protected. They have chairs to protect. They have institutions to represent. I don't need them to say what I'm saying. What I need them to do is to keep doing the research. Let us get the research and let us come to conclusions on it. And let us get it out so the whole world can hear it, so that the rest of the world, remember, it's the audience that I'm interested in. Because I want the audience to come to the same conclusions that I have come to, and that Mel has come to, and Paul and Robert and Odon have come to. And that is, The Islamic traditions just are not historically accurate. The Muhammad that they claim is just not there. The Quran that they're referring to that existed in 652, compiled by Uthman, just did not exist. And the city that they all are dependent on, that has been there since the time of Adam and Eve, just did not exist. That's all I want interested in. And the rest of the world is now catching on. And the reason they're catching on is because the academics are doing the hard work. We're just taking it and communicating it, and the audience is now hearing it. And the Muslims have no response to it. Have you noticed? The Muslims will not debate us on these three issues.
Yep.
Why aren't they debating us on these three issues? Because they don't have the evidence to support their claims.
Right.
So that's why we're in the driving seat. And after 45 years, it's nice to be in the driving seat for once. Because up till this point, up till 10 years ago, we were defense, 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 defense. We had no offense. Now we're on the offense, and Muslims are struggling on the defense.
Dr. Kerr, thank you.
No, thank you, Jay. I concur. And as I said, it's a teamwork. We all, work hand in hand, and we all have our different duties. I just wanted to go back to a few things that were raised earlier. So it is funny. So even with the Arabic language, if you look at something simple like Ismail, how it's written in Arabic, where the name in Hebrew Ishmael it's pretty transparent. God heard. So from Shama in Arabic to hear, and Il or El in Hebrew to God heard, which makes sense from the story. But if you look how it's written in Arabic, it's not God heard. It's nothing. It's a transcription from Syriac. So there is clearly no Arabic tradition, because it's all of the biblical names are transcribed, usually from Syriac, but sometimes, like in the case of Yunus, which is odd, it's clearly from a Greek source. But then you have this funny problem that if the Quran is a prophecy, well, first of all, what's a prophet doing in the 7th century? It's a real life anachronism. There are no prophets as such in the 7th century. And secondly, if he were a prophet, why do we know so much about him? So if you want to write a biography, for example, take a Hebrew prophet, one of the big books, Ezekiel or Jeremiah or Isaiah, how much do we know about them? Nothing. Because we don't need to, because if one accepts the logic, prophets are chosen by God. Therefore, they don't need a biography. They're a mouthpiece. So why do we have so much here? And then we get to the question of the hadiths with the chain of transmitters. So it's even worse, because often cases when you read the isnads, you see that there was somebody who was a toddler when he heard Aisha narrate something. And then you hear nothing about the guy. I'm exaggerating a bit. I'm learning from Jay. But you hear nothing about the guy until he's 85 and about to die. And then he tells it to another toddler. And they're trying to shortcut the chain of transmission to as few narrators as possible. And the point is, for example, if you read the Talmud, so in the Talmud, everything basically goes back to Hillel and Gamliel. So, New Testament readers will know Gamliel, that was the teacher of Paul. And it's always Bishem, 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 in the name of, in the name of, in the name of. But of course, and all of these, like in Islam, all of these rabbis who are in the Isnad, you could say, the Jewish Isnad, they all have biographies, but they're all rather stereotypical, and nobody actually believes that. They serve as a literary device, as transmitters. And what Jay was saying previously about the Meccan and the Medinan surahs, of course, this is total hogwash. There is no internal evidence in the Quran. So if you were going to do it, there are certain surahs that don't mention Allah. And those who know Old Testament criticism, there's the Elohist, the Yahwist, and the Priesterschrift and the what have you, the documentary hypothesis, I think it's called in English. That's how you would have to do it. What you see happening with the Meccan and the Medinan surahs, it's an exegetical device. So you find it, for example, with Tabari in his tafsir. But the initial stage, not as asbab in the strict sense, you find in the sirat. And of course, this becomes the asbab an-nuzul, the circumstances of revelation later, because they realize the Quran is full of contradictions and they have to introduce abrogation, naskh. And so it becomes an exegetical device. They have to divide the surahs, and then they say, okay, good, all of these ones that are a little bit more specific, we'll call them Meccan, and all of the, and then you get these books like Muhammad the Prophet and Muhammad the Statesman, you know, from his Medinan period. But there's no, there is absolutely no internal evidence for this. And when you read the tafsir, the mufassirun, you see they're more interested in the asbab an-nuzul than actually what the verse means. So that's just some thoughts. So this whole Meccan Medinan business, so you even see this with modern Quran editions. If you look at older printed Qurans, they would always say this surah was revealed on February 13th, 526 at 4 in the afternoon, and just before tea time. And but even the modern printed Qurans, they don't even the Saudi ones, they don't mention this anymore. They realize this doesn't work.
And believe it or not, even when we go to the scholars like Al-Tabari or Al-Qurtubi, they will tell you different reasons. Here is Asbab al-Nuzul. They give you 5 different reasons. And
Allahu Alam. Yeah, Allah knows best.
Allah knows best. That must be true. Yeah.
If I may, on this topic, you said earlier, Robert, that you cannot prove that something did not exist from a scientific perspective.
Yeah.
But we have now, I think, hard evidence that Mecca did not exist. I presented some of it in London last month, namely the climate, the hydrology, the rainfalls, and so on. So Mecca did not exist.
So what I said was the Mecca. It's clear that the Mecca of the Islamic tradition.
The Mecca of the Islamic tradition did not exist. So the Mecca of the Islamic tradition was invented. It's a later creation. And who invented it? The Mufassirun. The guys who used the Asbab al-Nuzul.
My comment about not proving a negative. So, as Jay quite rightly pointed out, the book, the man, and the city, they stand or fall together, and if one falls, they all fall. He is correct. Just to avoid any inclarity, my remarks here were only limited to the Prophet.
Okay, but my point is also on the prophets.
Yeah.
Let me explain. We now have hard evidence that the Islamic Mecca is a late creation. Who created it? The very same people who published the stories about the Prophet.
Yeah.
No,
so you see,
my point.
Someone could have a bit of a suspicion that
we get stuck into the arguments.
My only point.
I'd like to bring it back to Dr. J. We'll have this discussion very soon, all of us again. Yeah. Dr. J, what are you finding is most effective right now? What is really resonating with the researchers, with the apologists, but also affecting Muslims? What do you think has been bearing a lot of fruit? Where would you like to see the research go? How should we apply this?
Wow. Okay. Well, you're talking. It's going to take me an hour to get through all this.
Please go ahead. I'm
going to do this, by the way, in at Calvary Chapel in September. I'm going to look at the 3 areas, and I'm going to look at the 3. There are 3 major polemics that are hitting Islam right now. One of what we call the internal polemics, which is the whole Islamic dilemma problem. That is really hitting Muslims hard, and Muslims don't know what to do with that. The Islamic dilemma, which has nothing to do with what we're talking today. The other thing is the cultural dilemma. The Islamic dilemma has been around since the time of since the time of the 9th century. But Dr. Carl Fander really made it big in the 1800s, and David Wood is the one that has really pushed it this century. Chris from Speaker's Corner is the one that's written a book on it that's now breaking all records. And that one, the Muslims do not know what to deal with. The second one is what we call the cultural dilemma. They don't know what to do with the fact that Islam is just absolutely irrelevant everywhere it's tried, everywhere it's used, and why so many Muslims are leaving Muslim countries and coming to the West. And they're coming here to live in the freedoms that we have here. They don't know, and they want to reproduce what they've left, which is absolutely imbecile. And so that culture dilemma, and Hatun Tash is probably the key person on this one, the cultural dilemma. There are many others who are doing it. You guys are doing it as well. And then the third area is the historical critique, the external critique. So we have the internal critique, the cultural critique, and the external critique. And the external critique is probably the most devastating in that it is hitting the academics. It's not hitting the populace on the ground. Getting back to JC's point that he mentioned earlier, people on the streets don't understand the historical critique. It goes right over their head. It's the academics, it's the makers and shakers, it's the leaders of the next generation of Muslims that are having the worst problem with the historical critique, because they understand just how devastating and damaging it is. And of course, on a popular level, the Qira'at was probably the biggest one in the historical critique. That is when we introduced that in 2016 and filmed it so that the whole world saw it. And then to see Muhammad Hijab trying to deal with it and trying to go to Dr. Yasir Qadhi and demand that he get a response to it 4 years later in 2020. And then when Dr. Yasir Qadhi, a man of his stature, getting thrown under the bus because of this argument. I mean, throwing the Quran under the bus, not himself, throwing the Quran under the bus, and coming up with the Standard Islamic, the Standard Narrative has holes in it. He came up with that phrase. We didn't come up with that phrase. That's his phrase. That has done more damage than I think than any other one thing. And we're getting hundreds of Muslims that are leaving Islam because of that interview on June the 8th, 2020. That's a huge one. Dr. Dan Brubaker's material on the Razm changes. That has been absolutely devastating. When I introduced this in 2014 with a debate I had with Shabir Ali, and I just went to the 6 major manuscripts, the Topkapi, the Samarkand, the Ma'il, the Petropolitanus, the Husseini, and the Sana manuscript, those 6 manuscripts, and I said, why is it that none of them are complete? Why is it that none of them actually agree with each other completely? And why do none of them agree with the Quran we have today on the Razm? I'm not talking about the Qira'at here, because they don't have dots and vowels in those manuscripts. He could not answer that after 2 hours. As a result, we know of over 100 Muslims that have given their life to Jesus Christ just because of that one debate. That has been huge. And that's all Dan Brubaker's material. It's not my material. I didn't do the study on this. Dr. Dan Brubaker did the study on this. He has now found over 4,000 manuscript variants in just the consonantal text between these 6 manuscripts and about 4 other newer ones that have come up. So that has been huge. Now, what's happening now, I think the newest material that's going to have a huge effect on the Muslims are what we're talking concerning the extant manuscripts. These are the extant Hadith, Sirah, Tafsir, and Tahriq manuscripts. Those 4 genera of what we know as the Islamic traditions. We now have been spending the last 3 years looking and finding extant manuscripts. We're trying to find extant manuscripts for Ibn Hisham, Al-Waqidi, for Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, Tirmidhi, Majah, Nisai, Al-Tabari. Those 9 people. Those are the 9 major names of the Tafsir, the Hadith, the Sirah, and the Tahriq. We cannot find any manuscripts at all in the 9th or 10th century. They don't begin to appear until the 11th century. The manuscript evidence for Bukhari, which is probably the most important, the 9 volumes that we use today are from the 14th and 15th century. There are manuscripts of his from the 12th century that don't agree with the ones from the 14th and 15th century. This is proving to be hugely damaging for Muslims, because we're not just saying that, we're not just admitting, or we're not even stipulating anymore that they have to depend on 5 generations of isnad. We're saying that this nod, since there are no manuscript evidence even for the 9th and 10th century writers. I'm sure the writers were there. I'm sure they did write something, but those have been destroyed and accreted and deleted and corrupted, and they don't begin to appear until the 11th century. That's 400 years, and they continue to be accreted and deleted right through the Ottoman period, right up until the 15th century. If that is the case, then you can see why people like Shabir Ali and Dr. Yasser Qadhi had to make the statements they made just last year, a year ago, when they said, we cannot use historical criticism on these traditions. We understand that they are discredited by the West, but we can trust them because of their purity, of their sinlessness. What an idiotic thing to say to a Western audience. And he said that a year ago. And to this day, there's no Muslim that can support there's no Muslim that can really support these traditions. So we have an awful lot of material yet to work on. We have an awful lot of arguments to work on. This is exciting for me, because all I need to do now is just let Dr. Yasser Qadhi and Dr. Shabir Ali open their mouths and let them say what they're saying. And I just say now, even your best scholars are admitting that they cannot support what Muhammad said or what Muhammad did. If they can't support that, why don't you come on home to Jesus Christ? Because we have eyewitness account of what Jesus said and did. Thank God. Now we can argue to it, as to whether or not we can trust those accounts. That's a good argument, and we've been arguing that for 200 years. We're 200 years ahead of them. But at least we can say that our men that were there, our Sahaba were there writing it down. Good on Matthew for writing down what he saw and what he heard. Thank God for John for writing down what he saw and what he heard. And the Tabi'un who came after it got it from the Sahaba. So that's why, like with like, when we do a comparison of our manuscript evidence, of our historical evidence, when we look at a comparison of our cultural evidence, why is it that everybody wants to come our direction to where our Christian ideals are still being evidenced here in the West? And no one's going to Muslim countries. And then when you look at the internal evidence, just open up the Quran, just look at what Muhammad said and did, what David Wood, Sam Shamoun, Hatun Tash, what these, and Michael Jones, what they're doing with the internal evidence in the Quran itself, it's just decimating Islam. So yeah, these are the big arguments that are coming up, Lloyd. Mm-hmm. I'm excited because that shows me that we are sitting tight. No one's really asking questions of us anymore. All the questions seem to be going their direction, and it makes our job that much easier. But give credit to the guys who are on this panel here. You're looking at some of the world's best right here for doing the historical critique. What I consider to be probably the most devastating, because it's the one that's going to have the biggest effect in academia, in the institutions that are going to come from here on out. And that's why we, in some ways, we're opening the door, we're putting out and pushing the boundaries so people like the academics like Stephen Shoemaker can write the book, The Creation of the Quran. He was able to get that book written mainly because so many people he knew would buy that book. He knows that there's a huge panoply, an audience out there that wants to read how the Quran came to be. We need someone to write on Mecca yet, and we need someone to dare to write on Muhammad. Those two we don't have yet. We need academics to be able to do that.
I'm about to publish a book on Mecca. It used to be published.
Yeah, but I mean someone from academia. I mean someone from academia.
Academia.
Yeah. We need someone that belongs to academic material. Stephen Shoemaker is an academic. Once he writes, Gabriel St. Reynolds is coming closer and closer to doing that. I'm just giving a little bit more time. I think he'll be writing for us.
But Dr. Smith, we know everything about Muhammad. We know when the light came in and the light came out, and we know everything. What do you mean we don't know about Muhammad? I mean, Muslims know everything, more than you can even imagine. Remember?
Okay, there you go. Now prove it.
Now, Jay, if I can speak about a little anecdote, in 2017, the two bestsellers in Morocco, the two best-selling books in Arabic, there was one book from Mohamed Lamsia. Robert knows him. He attended many INARA conferences. So it was one book in Arabic about discrepancies and oddities in ancient Quranic manuscripts. And the other book was from Rashid Eilal, Moroccan author, about the end, Sahih al-Bukhari, the end of a myth, the end of a legend. And he explained that there are no ancient manuscripts from Bukhari. And those two were the best-selling books in this Muslim country, Morocco, in 2017. So you can guess that you will have a lot of success with these arguments.
That's 9
They
years ago.
really
So,
interest Muslims.
Amen.
well, listen, can we get that translated into English?
The book from Mohammed Lamsia, surely. But the other one, I'm not so sure, because he is a Muslim, Rashid Aylal. He is a Muslim. He defends Islam. And at least I know that he views me as an Islamophobic. So he didn't want to talk with me. He unfriended me on Facebook because of this. I tried to reach him and ask him about the translation. We might have to do it ourselves without asking him.
But we're probably in the next Inara volume, there'll be a French article about him.
Amen. Amen. You know what's amazing? As I grew up in Egypt, learning about Mecca, Dr. J. Smith, it's unbelievable. They make it 100% factual. I mean, you're talking about that great city, which without it, literally, the travel between Yemen and the Levant, Shem, will end because people could not make that long trip without stopping at Mecca so they can get the food and the water they needed to continue the trip. So Allah in his wisdom made that great city Mecca there in the perfect spot for life to move on. And when you hear that, you can't help it but all your life to believe it. And I listen to you. You tell me there was no life in Mecca, there was no water, and all the good food and the rest area like for the travelers.
I'm so sorry to have destroyed all your childhood dreams.
Oh. Wow.
As Robert does.
Crying, yeah, wipe your tears. I mean, seriously, think about it. When I heard you talk about that subject first time, it seemed to me, as I said at the beginning of our podcast, you're A, liar, B, you do not know what you're talking about, or C, you're just being deceived, I guess, because how can we talk about, how can we get this information to the Arab Muslims who grew all their life for hearing from their grandparents and their parents, as they teach their children and their grandchildren about how great the city of Mecca. I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible. And we have no evidence of that.
This is the beauty of YouTube. This is the beauty of all of the different platforms that we have. I mean, we have quite a few platforms represented right here, and big platforms. And that's why it's so good that every one of us has it. Paul, you have a platform. Mel, you have a platform. Odin, you have a platform. Lloyd does. Usama, you're on everybody else's platform. You need to start your own and really
Usama
start
spends
really
most of his time with me.
Say that again?
He spends most of his time with me.
I don't have time to do anything. Actually, we do in English in our TV broadcast Saturday nights. And,
listen, I don't mind you being on Lloyd's platform. That's great, but you also need to have your own so that your name gets out there. And that's why I'm telling all of my students, we've started about 20 different platforms. I said, the more platforms we get this out there, the more people that you can influence, the areas that you can cover that I can, the better this is going to get out. This is one reason why YouTube has been such a great vehicle for us. Writing books is great as well. That's why I'm glad that Odon's doing that. I'm glad that, Robert, you have been doing lots of articles. All of us need to start writing articles and writing books. Let's just get ourselves onto as many platforms, because that's how we're convincing so many people.
Amen.
We've been working together for some months now. Usama and myself, we've done 80, 90 shows already, I think, if not more. We've been very, very fortunate that Dr. Kerr has joined us recently. We're doing regular shows. We're discussing various very interesting topics. And
maybe Dr. Smith does not know. I really do have my own channel, which is Usama Way, or Revealing the Truth About Islam. Has been doing that for.
Let me just see who you are.
Usama Way. It's a straight way, Grace Ministry. I've been doing that now for almost literally TV over like 5-6 years, but on the radio for 16 years with VCY and Worldview Weekend, Brand House. So I'm super busy, but I love to work with Lloyd as well.
May I just
what's the name
something.
of the channel?
Usama Way, USAMA, Usama Way.
No, it's not here. Am I looking? Is it all one word?
Yes, it's one word, Usama Way. Or it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on Rumble, it's on X, it's everywhere.
We'll send the link
with Lloyd de Young. I don't see anything of yours.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe
Usama, you text him the link.
Oh, here it is. Usama Dakdok. It's Usama Dakdok is what you call yourself.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we have hundreds and hundreds of videos for all the years and radio broadcasts.
You need to get more subscribers. You need to just build up. That
I really, I'm the last one who think about how to do that. I really care less about doing it. I just love to be with other people as well, encourage other people. That's good.
Dr. J, one thing I've noticed though, we've been collaborating together, and in theory, I mean, fine, I'm not the largest channel, but what I'm noticing is one, that YouTube is clearly messing with the statistics. Clearly, I am getting far more views than what the YouTube numbers indicate, and so YouTube fiddles with the statistics. But that said, it's also not the size of the audience. Sometimes it's the quality. So what I find is that often the message that we're putting out there filters through, it resonates, and Muslims do respond to it. Others do respond to it. People do pick it up and use it. Not always credit one. So therefore, the size of the audience isn't. It's also the quality of the audience. And I think the quality we put out has a very large impact. It's actually well beyond we punch well above our weight. So I think we're doing some really good work here. We've got some great people. And we're at the bleeding edge, and I think we're leading. Yes?
I've had my channel since 2006, so I think I've had the oldest. I do have the oldest channel here. I've had mine for 20 years. Remember, YouTube was invented in 2005. So I've been going almost as long as YouTube has existed. And back when I started, we could only do 15-minute videos. And I didn't really want to start the channel. It was some Christians in London that came to me and said, when they went up online and they found out that there were 43,000 videos attacking Christianity by Muslims, only 17 confronting Islam, 17 versus 43,000. And they said, we need someone to go public. Would you do so? You're down at Speaker's Corner. People are filming you. This is before the iPhone. This is before, well, maybe it was the iPhone was out by that time, but this is really before, YouTube was the first one to really put videos out there on a platform that people could watch. I said, okay, let's do it. And that's why I started. Now, what I tell people, and this is what I've been trying to get people to get across. If you're going to put videos out there, make sure you read the comments at the bottom of the video, because that's where you find out the caliber of the people that you're talking about. And that's what we're finding out, Lloyd. The comments really show you if you're just getting people who just are knee-jerk reaction, or people who are actually engaging with what you're saying. When you get people that engage with what you're saying, you know you're successful. And I always read the comics. And I hope that you're all doing the same. Don't just put videos up there without looking at the comics, because that's where you can find out what is communicating and what's not communicating. That's called peer review, actually, the comments. And what you do, and that's how I found Odon. Remember Odon? I found you because of the comments you were making. They were such good comments. I said, this guy is of substance. He knows what he's talking about. And he was feeding me stuff I didn't know. He was feeding me stuff about the coins that I didn't know. That's how I found Paul. Paul, I got you on board because of the comments. You were there, and I said, this guy really has substance. He understands the Jerusalem, the Jerusalem parameter that I've never really come across. So if we're going to be doing this, make sure that you engage with the people that are that are watching you. You may not know. I mean, a lot of times people put names that aren't there. I mean, most people put names that aren't theirs. They're just foolish names, or they're just a formula. Make sure you do contact them and then start to work with them, and then use them as a means. They may not want to go public. I have 2 or 3 people that I use that don't want to go have their face on the camera and don't want to go public. That's fine. But as long as they keep feeding me material, and as long as they keep feeding and bringing material that is excellent, you're going to find out that that's going to help, and it's going to upgrade your material as well. So yeah, absolutely. Make sure that our material tends to be we tend to get much more. Wouldn't you say that, Mel? We tend to get a lot more people that are of such. I mean, especially your origins. When I look at the comments on your origins, these are all people that have been following you for years.
They're a very serious group. You know, they like to go deep into things. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, they are 10 times more intelligent than I am and are more gifted in so many areas. So they're a great help to me. One of the things I wanted to say, without maybe changing the subject, is I think one of the things that is really important to communicate with the general audience is people project back onto the 7th and 8th century their idea of what Islam is like today. And Islam under the Umayyads and Islam under the Abbasids, and again, Islam under the Ottomans are three completely different things. And most of what we think of Islam today is really Ottoman created.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we need to emphasize.
Good point. Excellent point.
So I wonder, Jay, whether you think what impact you think the Jerusalem thesis is have. I mean, it seems to me that you've got what you might call the Jerusalem dilemma for Islam. You've got it in Surah Al-Baqarah. You've got Shekinah in the Ark of the Covenant. You've got Mary in the sanctuary of the temple being raised there. You've got everything. The final judgment is all going to take place in Jerusalem. All the characters in the Quran, virtually all are Jerusalem oriented. People like David and Solomon and Saul and Moses in his way is on his way to Jerusalem, and Abraham, of course, and even Muhammad himself on the Islamic tradition. He can't, if he wants to go to heaven, he has to go to Jerusalem in order to get up there. And so, and then you look at the Umayyads building the Dome of the Rock. It's clear where they think the central place is, and where is Mecca in all this. So I wonder, so far, is that getting any traction?
Paul, you have absolutely convinced me on the Jerusalem thesis, so I'm right with you on that. I don't know where Mel stands on that, but I'm right with you on that. And I think one of the problems one of the difficulties is that so many people were influenced by Dan Gibson, and Dan Gibson has really pushed the Petra antecedents so strongly and done such a great job. We had Dan at the conference last month, and he Odon, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him, but I had a long time, and then we had a panel discussion. Remember that panel discussion where he was up there on the stage with us, and he made this incredulous statement. He said, "What you're finding out, what you're doing, Jay, you and Dan Janasic, who's sitting next to me, most people are discrediting because you're not taking into consideration all these thousands upon thousands of books written by Muslims that completely confront what you're saying. And you have not read all those books. Therefore, most of what you're saying just is most people are laughing at this idea that there was no Mecca, this idea there was no Quran, and this idea that there was no Muhammad living in Mecca." And I sat there and I just looked and I realized we're talking from two completely different presuppositional bases. See, what you're doing, Paul, is you're not going to the traditions to find out how to find these antecedents. You're actually going to the evidence on the ground in the 7th century. Dan, however, starts from the traditions. He believes the traditions are perfectly valid. So therefore, everything he finds, he uses the traditions first, and then he tries to prove it from within, from what the evidence that he finds on the ground. And that's why he comes up with Petra. Petra makes sense because it fits into the paradigm of the traditions that he starts with. Those of us here who are talking here, the 5 of us, none of us start from that premise. We've pretty well thrown out their traditions. Why? Because they're all so late. And what they say just don't fit the evidence that we're seeing in the 7th century. And what you're doing, Paul, you're saying, I don't care what the traditions say. Of course, well, if you're going to go with the traditions, why even put Petra? Don't bring Petra into it. Go back to Mecca. Stick with Mecca then. But what you're doing is saying, no, let's stop, dismiss the traditions. They're all too late anyways. They have so many errors, historical anachronisms, geographical dislocations, scientific, and certainly religious, theological discrepancies that could never have existed that far south when there are no Christians or Jews to actually create the discussions that are happening within the Quran and the traditions. Let's go and see what we are finding. Where could these discussions have been taking place? Where does the geography that you're finding actually exist? And what are all these reference after reference after reference to these places that would make no sense in Petra? They absolutely make sense in Jerusalem. That's why I am convinced that you got it correct on that. Now, as far as fleshing it out,
there are limited possibilities here. Either God has multiple houses, which there's no evidence for that in the Quran, or God moved his house, and there's no evidence for that in the Quran, or the Jews got the house of wrong.
Paul, there is evidence for that in chapter 2, 145 to 149, where he goes from Jerusalem down to the Masjid al-Haram. Again, the Masjid al-Haram, it doesn't say Mecca, it says Masjid al-Haram, and that's in verse 149.
Dr. J, Paul will be publishing his book soon, and we're going to be working on a draft copy on this channel. We'll be discussing it here. So would you perhaps like to join us as Paul presents that and add your contribution along with, of course, Dr. Kerr and Odon and the rest?
Listen, Lloyd, I'm surprised you got all these guys on at one time. How you got that, I don't know. When I thought it was just going to be you, me, and Usama. And when I came on, I saw Odon's face there, and I saw Robert Kerr's face, and I saw Mel. Mel, you're supposed to be on a pilgrimage. And then I saw Paul's as well. God bless you. What you're doing, I think
the more the merry, Doctor. The more the merry. We love the big crowds here.
This channel is like a party. So, I was kind of invited on, and then Robert Kerr found out about it, and he joins in, and then Mel, I think, was just kind of minding his own business, and he came across us and joined in last week. So now you're here. It's incredible. It's a hub. It's like a magnet, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I have no problem helping when I am free. My problem is my schedule. Like I have to leave. In fact, I have to leave in about another 15 minutes because I have to be somewhere else. But yeah, anytime you're doing this, just let me know when you're doing it, and I'd love to hear Paul's. I would like to hear him flesh it out, and so we can throw questions, because this is, in some ways, we are going to be the peer review for Paul. And that's why it's so good having Robert Kerr, because he has such a wealth of background in so many areas. He can just calm us down and say, wait a minute, there's another way to look at it. And we need to have that. Odon as well.
We do a regular weekly show with the panel as we have it. And Usama joins when he can. Mal has joined us now once or twice.
Oh, is it always at this time?
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Robert Kerr's been a blessing. I mean, just amazing knowledge and content. So yeah, if you'd like to join us, it would be wonderful to have the two of you on, especially to add your contributions, because we're working at the bleeding edge here, and I think that, and a lot of us, we concur with you. We're inspired in many cases by you, at least some of us are, and we all seem to be converging on the same conclusions, and we'd love to support each other.
Yeah, I would say I'm not really the academic that you have. The others are probably more academic.
That's okay, Neither am I.
I'm just the communicator who gets it out so that people can hear it. But no, I would love to join you whenever I'm free. And if you could just remind me each week what the subject is, I may come in for that. I may suspend and move things around just if it's a subject that I'm interested in. But listen, this is a great group that you've got here. I would ask if you could get Al-Fadi on as well. Al-Fadi would be another one. Probably Robert Janasic should be in on this as well.
Dr. Kerr, your thoughts on that? If we had Dr. J join us, because I think with the two of you collaborating and us discussing things would be amazing.
I'm all for it. Yeah, the more the merrier, as I said.
Amen.
Just as long as whenever Robert speaks, we need to keep quiet and let him speak, because I think of all of us, he probably has the academic equilibrium more so than the rest of us. Sorry to make you embarrassed, Robert, but we all look up to you. We have a huge amount of respect for you.
We just do what we can. We just do what we can. But I would concur with what Paul said, because, of course, it's called Bait in the Quran, the house, which is Habayit in Hebrew, and of course, 3 guesses where that is, and so yeah. It can only, so if you only have one God, how many houses does he have? And even if you look at the Islamic tradition, not that I'm saying that it's historical, but with Umar, riding into Jerusalem, redoing Palm Sunday, it should say something that they're trying to claim Jerusalem as their own, and of course Mecca only makes sense later, and I have ideas about that, but that would go too far now. But it's clear that it's a secondary development. It makes sense, I think, but it's clearly a secondary development.
Got to go, guys.
Okay, Mel.
Okay.
Good seeing you.
Been great. Take care, guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to have to go
All the
too.
best. Bye.
So God bless you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
By the way, you all know that Mel just recently got married.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
Nobody told me. I was not invited even. What is wrong with you, Mel?
By the way, we did invite Saint
Neither was
Murad.
I,
He couldn't
Usama.
make
None
it
of us
today.
were invited.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, Saint
do
Murad
apologize.
couldn't make it today. I did invite Saint Murad, but he's busy. We're asking him tomorrow, though.
Okay.
Tomorrow
Lloyd,
I've got
God bless you. Thanks for what you're
All the
doing.
best.
God's
All
good.
the rest of you, I'm going to have to say goodbye. We'll see you
care,
probably
Jay.
next week or a week
Thank you.
after.
Okay.
Take
Great
care
to
then.
see you,
Thank
Jay.
God bless, Dr. J.
Yeah, I've got something prepared for on Porcana for tomorrow, if you want.
Fantastic.
Great. So we can do that. With this topic, one thing that I actually wanted to mention is when we were talking about evidence, that we hear that Muslims say that they used to have the house of Khadija right there in Mecca, but then they turned that into, I think, parking space or something of the sort, when it should be, if that thing was there, the definite proof that Mecca was there. You could know how it was built and all of that, and it would be pretty much a museum. But instead of that, they somehow decided to remove it. And then there is the other story that I always bring up, because I liked it when you said it, Lloyd, about that museum in Sanaa, that something happened to it. I don't know if you want to tell the audience in case they didn't know about that
Yeah,
event.
so the work I did on Yemen, on the southern and early Yemeni contributions or influences on Islam, there was a museum in Al-Mahadisha, which a Saudi F-16 apparently dropped a couple of bombs on, destroyed 12,000 pre-Islamic artifacts for no reason whatsoever.
But the best answer, JC, the best answer, we do not have evidence, because Allah, in His wisdom, He chooses to lead some people to guidance and lead others away to be gone astray. And He did not give this evidence so He can use the missing of the evidence to lead people astray, so He can fill hell with human and jinn, because that is His wishes from the beginning.
Alvin, what are you doing on this
Allah
panel?
is the greatest of deceivers.
Exactly.
Should not be
Allah
underestimated.
I once heard an argument, though, by some type of Christian. I can't remember what he was, but he denied stratigraphy, and he said, "Yeah, the dinosaurs were only created to look old."
Yeah, I've heard that before.
To confuse us. I'm like, okay, good. Well, if there's, then what are we talking about? But no, but I concur. But there is one caveat that one has to make, that so maybe partly as a reaction to all of this critical research going on, that Yemen in certain Islamological circles has become something of a vogue. But the point is, if you look at the Hijaz and Yemen, they're about 800 miles apart or something. And they're not culturally related, So everybody says, oh, yeah, it's all Arabia. But it's a bit like, saying that, I don't know, Vancouver and Montreal are in the same country, therefore...
they have the same culture, same way of life.
They have the same way of life, which doesn't really fly. And so one has to take these geographical differences into account. And
there are some odd
there was
connections, oddities with sort of like delving into in the future.
Yeah, no, but what one has to remember, that Yemen was well connected with everywhere. So anybody that reads about the Bab al-Mandeb, this was always the case. But the connection with the Yemen to the the Middle East, and also to India and everywhere else, to Africa, was always by the sea route. It wasn't by the land route, and especially in the period we're dealing with, it was largely the sea route. So, and you just have to read Herodot with Necho II when he builds the first Suez Canal. And why is Nabonidus in Timnah? Well, they're trying to monopolize the trade routes. And
yeah, let's not get into that too much now, because I did a lot of work on that, which might be worth discussing in the future. There's some oddities off the beaten track that may be of interest. But yeah, guys. Yeah, I know. Apologies, Dr. Kerr and Odon earlier for breaking up the little discussion there, but it felt like it was going to go off topic somewhat, or down a blind alley, and then I just wanted to bring it back to.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all.
Because we can always have that discussion again, but I'm also, and of course, I'm very excited that Paul's book is coming up soon. So, but yeah, and tomorrow we'll be talking with Saint Murad, who he's got some very interesting material he's developing in relation to Subaik and Yemen as well. Mm-hmm. So, but he's not ready to really speak about it too much because he just needs more time. But there's certain things that overlaps with work that I've done. So yeah, so there might be some new avenues opening up in the future.
Amen.
Very good.
We'll call it off. God bless you guys. I have to go down to my conference. I left the conference. I said for 2 hours. Now it's 2.5 hours. I need to go.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Usama.
God bless you. Good to see you, Doc.
Appreciate tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay. Good to see you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
God bless you all. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Kerr. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Anyone, any final words before we log off? And of course, thank you to the audience for staying with us. But guys, any last words like Odon, Paul, JC?
It's always great to see Jay. I mean, he's such a showman, and he's really. We all of us owe him such a debt of gratitude for certainly I do for getting me started and getting laying everything out so clearly and theatrically right at the very outset. It's just like I'm going back 10 years. I mean, he was 10 years before that. So yeah, it's always great to see him and his great, the preachers, all the tricks of the preacher.
Yeah, he spoke very highly of you guys. That's really great to see. Odon?
Well, it's sort of the same as Paul. When I started working on Islam, I found Jay's videos, and they were, like Paul said, very intense, very dense, and they put me on track to discovering many things about the origins of Islam.
Yeah, we all owe him a debt. We do. JC, final words?
Yeah, exactly the same as they have said. I started researching Islam and I realized the narrative made no sense. It was not coherent. It is not describing someone that you would follow. There are too many problems. So it didn't make any sense. And then that's when I discovered the videos from Dr. J. And it started to make sense the moment that he said, we have no evidence for these things. And that actually led me down that rabbit hole that we are discussing here as well on the channel, which is, the story is pretty much a fabrication. So it's been phenomenal.
So Dr. J did say there are 5 great minds in the chat. And of course, if I add myself and JC, I guess it's 5 2/7. So, so JC, you and me got to do some work, right? We got to try and come up to stat.
God bless you all. God bless you all.
Cheers, guys. God bless. We'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.